I was actually taken away from my mother. I did not know that I was mixed. They're white and they hate me because I'm black. But it came in handy when I was getting strangled and I realized I don't have any air. I know I felt myself being thrown into the closet, lived homeless with our 2 kids at the time. I ended up getting kidnapped and trafficked out by him. He was a monster by getting the crap beat out of me by him and his friends. Did not actually physically rape me until I turned 18. So I remember being in a room like with nothing but a mattress on the floor. It's just, I'm gonna punch you in your stomach, I'm gonna do all these other things, but I'm not gonna touch your face, because that's when I had lost the will to live, fight for myself. One of the things he would say every time he was raping me was that, I don't want to talk about her because she's probably watching right now.
We are back with another episode of Scars. Today, I am sitting down with Miss Vitelle. How are you doing, lady?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
That is what's up.
I'm in Jersey for the first time. Can't be better.
I am glad you were able to make the trip. You
Yes.
know, you called me and was like, look, I'm in D.C. for my show, but I'm going to drive up and get with you. So I am happy that you were able to make the trip and sit down with us.
Me too. I'm glad I made it. I'm glad I brought my jacket. You know, like
That's what I'm talking
it's
about.
cold up this way, but I'm loving it.
She
so
said
far.
mind you, it's 70 degrees in here, y'all, but she's doing Jersey. So it's all good. So,
From the South.
So tell everyone about yourself.
Yeah, so for those who do not know me, my name is Vitelle. I'm an actress, model, entertainer, CEO of Us 3 Productions, author, public speaker. I do a little bit of everything, but the most important thing to know about me is that I use all of my traumatic testimonies in order to help people heal. Use my talents, using my testimony. That's what it's all about for me. So that sums me up in a nutshell.
There we go. There we go. So let's get into some scars.
All right.
Tell us about your childhood.
Man, first of all, what childhood? It was almost non-existent, and that's part of the problem. When it comes to childhood trauma, a lot of mine was blacked out. Like most people who experience childhood trauma, I forgot a lot of things, not on purpose. It's just a protection mechanism that your brain does to protect you. And so I couldn't remember a lot, went through a lot of therapy as an adult in order to get back a lot of my memories. And in that, I realized where some of my blocking out comes from. I was actually, I'll just name a few of the things because it's a lot. Obviously, I wrote a book about it. But between the neglect, dealing with a narcissistic parent, that kind of childhood trauma, I think sometimes verbal and emotional abuse is actually worse than physical. Not that I haven't sustained all of them, but I think most people who have been through both could say that mental, spiritual abuse, things like that are often worse. So I experienced that stuff as a child. And I was actually taken away from my mother. I experienced raising kids at too young of an age, so it kind of put me in a mindset to where I didn't really have time to be a kid. So that was a part of that as well. So all of that, you know, kind of segues, you carry that into your adulthood, and then everything you experience from that point on, your childhood sets the tone. So that's where it all started.
Okay.
So when it comes to the father, I did not have one. And that kind of segues into one of my other traumas, which is colorism. I did not know that I was mixed. And so my father, my biological father, who is white, he wasn't around, he did not exist. But once I was aware of that, I was always taught that they hate me because I'm black. So that led to even a deeper hatred for not just my father, but that whole side of the family.
Wow.
You know, so that's the father situation. It was beyond just fatherless. It was, dang, I hate that whole race of people because they hate me. So
have you met any of your family on your father's side?
I have now. I have, and I've actually developed somewhat of a relationship with them. It's not what it would have been nice to have, you know, family like that, but it's not what I would like it to be because it just never was there. So now I guess as an adult, it just doesn't seem as important. So it's not that they're not trying at this point. It's just like out of sight, out of mind, you know? So I don't have bad blood with them. I just don't have a relationship with them. Yeah, I was told that they're white and they hate me because I'm black. That was that was what I was told. So that was what I grew up knowing and accepting that reality. But then when I got older and started finding out for myself and realizing, oh, okay, these people do want to be a part of my life. They did attempt to be a part of my life. Then it was like, okay, well, let me see what they're talking about now. So I had to change my whole mindset because I went from, I hate this whole race of people to, maybe I'm wrong. And then, so it took years to change that whole mindset. I remember in college, I was like, when white people would come into the room, it was so bad that I'd be with all my friends who were all black or some other race, and they'd come into the room and I'd be like, I'd growl, basically. I'd like snarl practically and get up out. Like I did not even want to be there anymore. It was that bad. And my friends would laugh at me. They're like, how you hate white people this much? And you can blend right in with them. But they didn't understand, like I really couldn't. I experienced another piece of my childhood trauma was going from a all black school. It was like one white person in the whole school, and it wasn't me. So going from that and then being placed in a white school where I'm the blackest person in here now, and they hate me. So it was a whole shift at that point, and I realized, yeah, I hate them too. That's where my mind was because of my atmosphere and where I was placed. So in college, I had to make that adjustment to say, I don't really hate all people, and all people aren't really the same, but, undoing a whole lifetime of what I thought I knew. Now that I know both sides a little bit better, I can't say that they weren't racist. I would say that it's just something that's embedded in them. And they can't help it. Even if they, as the generations go on and they're trying not to be, it's still something it's a generational curse, just like what we have on either side of the family. So there was times, I'll give you an example to explain what I'm trying to say here. So when I brought it to my grandmother on my dad's side, so his mother, we built a relationship and I brought it to her attention. This is why I never liked you, because I was told you hate me because I'm black, and these are the things that I was told. So we had that conversation, and one of her responses was, I'm not racist. I have several black friends. I'm like, let me explain to you how racist that sounds now. Now I got to break this down for you. So, it's something that I get it. She was trying, especially towards the end of her life, to be different because times are changing. But it's still where you come from, so it would still always be that awkwardness there. And that's why when I say, like, as much as I'd like a relationship, when conversations are had, it's kind of just like crickets chirping. What do we even talk about? We have nothing in common. There is really nothing. You can't give me advice. I don't, look up to you. Like, there's nothing there. For me, there's nothing there. So it's like, well, these are just some people that helped create me, and I'm thankful for them. That's pretty much where it ends at that point. So, yeah.
Are you working on your kids having a relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I did, especially towards the end. So that grandmother has passed on, and towards the end of her life especially, I started bringing the kids around her because I realized that was part of my problem. I didn't understand where I came from or all the parts of me. And so I wanted them to get and understand and just be accepting and loving of all people. Everything that I do when it comes to raising my children is to make, like, everything that I felt like was wrong for me or that made bad qualities in myself, I try to fix them in my own kids, and that's one of them. So I did get them to meet. They've met that side of the family. They know the story behind it. I tell them the truth about this is how I felt about them, and this is why, and these things. And so they're able to come to their own conclusion of how they feel about people based on the truth from all sides. So, yeah, they did get a chance to kind of meet and have that relationship. But again, not much of a relationship, just some people who are familiar to them. And then, it's not like they spend a lot of quality time together or anything, but they knew of her. At least they know where they come from. Yeah.
Now, did you have any scars? Like, I know when your mom looked at you, she saw your dad, right?
Possibly.
Please.
Possibly.
Were there any scars when it comes to dealing with mom and that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's where the colorism scar comes in, because I wasn't just experiencing it from school and outside sources of everybody, like, what are you? What kind of race? All this stuff all the time. But then at home, if I know that you hate these people and now I know that I'm part these people, that means you kind of hate me too. That explains a lot because with the neglect and the way our relationship was, I often did feel like she hated me. And so when I came to the conclusion that this makes sense now, this is why she hates me. So yeah, it's definitely a scar in that department to think that the person that gave birth to you hates you. And it wasn't until, growing into understanding scars and understanding the generational curses that I was able to say, okay, I forgive her because she's like this because of what she experienced and how she was raised and what she went through. So now it's just up to me to break that from here on out. So.
Okay. Let's talk about the scar, domestic violence.
Yeah, so domestic violence, I would say coming from the childhood, you are almost always, I don't know the exact statistics, so I'm trying to word this correctly, but more than likely, if you have an abusive childhood, you're going to end up in an abusive relationship.
Okay.
That's just pretty common. Did not know that, again, had to learn the hard way, and then in my healing process found out, oh, this is perfectly normal. Okay, this makes sense now. But I did end up being one of those people that knows how to pick them. And so you're automatically attracted to what you think love looks like. And that love looks like the people that you grew up with who you felt like hated you. But that's the love that you know. So when you see that familiarity in a man, then that's what you're going to be drawn to. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I've been married twice, divorced twice, and I experienced domestic violence of every form, again, from the physical to the mental, financial, spiritual, and understanding that physical scars heal, but the rest of that stuff does not. It takes a lot longer to heal, rather. Not that it doesn't heal, but it takes a lot longer. So, yeah, domestic violence has been a big part of my life, and that's why I'm such an advocate for it now, because people are losing their lives all the time to domestic violence, and I'm grateful that I did not. The worst situation that I did have was the last one, in which I was strangled. I was literally held up in the air and strangled by someone twice as big as me, and that's when I decided I'm not going back to that situation anymore. So luckily I survived, and I think a part of that is because I had actually trained myself to not need oxygen much. Sounds ridiculous, but that comes from, I got to explain that one. So it comes from a whole childhood of people smoking around you, not knowing that you're allergic to it, and you wonder why you feel like you're dying every time you experience smoke. Now I know as an adult I'm allergic to it, but I had to train myself to not breathe as much because everyone would smoke around me, and then if I'm choking or can't breathe, then they're like, girl, you all right, you get it together, like whatever. I'm not gonna quit smoking because you're over here dying kind of thing. So that was a whole nother childhood trauma. But, I experienced that, so I learned how to cope. Like my whole life, I've learned how to cope. And so I would put my face in my sleep like this and just breathe more shallow. And I learned how to just not need the air as much. And that's, wow. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But it came in handy when I was getting strangled and I realized I don't have any air. I have to try not to need it right now. So I didn't time it, obviously, but when you're in those situations, it can feel like forever. But I was up there for a minute, and to the point that I didn't know if I was about to black out or not because I kind of already had disconnected. And so the next thing, I know I felt myself being thrown into the closet from that point. So I figured he probably thought I was dead because I was limp and I just disconnected from myself. And so, once I was in the closet, my back hit like a bookshelf. And I was just in there. I was aware of everything, but I still hadn't quite returned to myself. And so, I heard him leave and everything, and I realized, oh, I'm still alive. It took me a minute to even realize that I'm still alive. So that was the last domestic violence experience that I had, physically, anyways. And so at that point, that's what I was like, I'll never. I experienced my mom experiencing domestic violence as well. So that's another thing. When you experience that as a child, you see your mom getting beat on, you're either going to end up in the same relationships all the time, or you're going to say, I will never let myself be that. There's one or two options. And so I did both kind of, I guess, because I ended up in those relationships at first. But as soon as they got physical, that's when I was like, divorce. For me, that was the only cause for a divorce, if you're trying to kill me because I'm trying to stay alive. I would say I ignored a lot of the red flags because I was in love. But I still saw them, and I just hoped that it wouldn't lead to that. So it definitely was a buildup. It was, getting angrier and angrier each time over the smallest things, and you're just like, what? And then, I'm the type of person, it's difficult to argue with me because I don't mind letting you feel like you're right. Like, or you might be right. I don't mind admitting that. So, it's like you're arguing with me, and I'm just sitting here looking, and you're getting madder and madder, and you're getting madder at the fact that I'm not getting madder. And now I'm just really like, okay, something is wrong with this person, so it goes from the yelling and screaming and getting mad over little things to now I'm throwing stuff through the wall, and now I'm mad and I'm punching stuff. And so as soon as it got to physical with inanimate objects, I was like, yeah, this is probably going to get physical with me. So I knew it was only a matter of time. And honestly, how do I say this? I don't want to say that I brought it on myself, but I knew where it was going, and I allowed it to go there so that I could get out, because I knew that was the only thing that was going to make me get out. Does that make sense? It's like, I don't really want to be in this relationship anymore because all this arguing and all this crazy stuff, like, I know it's going to get worse, but I don't know how to just walk away off of that. Like, it's going to have to get life-threatening before I walk away. And so it was the day that the strangulation happened, it was like I stopped. I knew how to give him what he needed to calm down. So I just always was that. I just always was, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry, whatever, it's just to de-escalate the situation. That day, I decided I'm not going to de-escalate the situation at that point. So I almost expected, I didn't expect strangulation, but I definitely expected some physical violence to take place. Get violent. Yeah, because I was just like, I was packing my stuff and I was heading out. And that's what really set him off. And I'm like ignoring him at this point. He's yelling at me, following me from room to room. I'm just like ignoring him, packing up my stuff, not saying nothing. And as soon as I yelled back, the second I yelled back, because it's like, somebody just poking. I'm ignoring it the whole time, and it's just building up. And the second I opened my mouth and yelled back, that's when it got violent. So prior to that, I hadn't done that. I just let him yell and just gave him whatever he needed to stop yelling. And so as soon as that happened, that's when the violence came. And I seen it coming a little bit. I thought it was going to be a hit, not a strangle. But, it was definitely predictable because it escalated to that point.
Let's talk about homelessness.
Let's talk about it. So homelessness is another one of those things that I consider a generational curse. I have experienced that since childhood. I experienced it with my mom. It was a little bit different as a child because it didn't hit me like it does adults. It was like, oh, what an adventure. We're going to stay at a shelter. There's all these other kids there. We get to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if we don't like the food that they're cooking. That's exciting. That's where I looked at it at that point from a child's perspective. But, and I didn't understand why mom was crying all the time. I didn't understand what the stress was all about. But then as an adult experiencing it myself, I actually ended up homeless, living in my car with my first husband, lived homeless with our 2 kids at the time. And so it was the 4 of us living in a car. We ended up driving to Miami because it got cold. We were in Atlanta at the time. It got cold in Atlanta, so we drove to Miami. And even in that situation, even though I was experiencing it differently, in which I was the one carrying the stress now, I still understood how important it was to make sure that my kids don't carry this stress. And so I made it an adventure for them. So we were never homeless to them. We lived on the beach. We live wherever we're at this time. Like, this is where we live, and just trying to maintain positivity throughout that. So now that my kids are older, I'm able to ask, do you remember this? Do you remember that? Was that traumatizing for you? Do you have any negative feelings about that experience that you had? And all of their memories from then were fun and happy and cheerful, because one thing about it, it was a time where we spent way more time together. It wasn't like we came home, everybody went to their own rooms and got on their devices. Like, we were always together. We were there. So that was my second, not including childhood, homeless experience. But once we came from living in the car, we got an apartment that ended up having a mold issue, and they kicked us out of there. So we weren't even there long. So a whole nother homelessness. We've experienced the type of homelessness of staying in hotels, government paid for hotels, churches covering it, staying on other people's couches or in other people's houses. There's so many different types of homelessness.
Yeah.
I've experienced just about everyone, except for, thank God, I've never gotten to the point where I'm in a box on the street. That is definitely, I guess there's levels to this, you could consider that the worst homelessness, but there's definitely different levels to it, and I've experienced all but that. And that's only because I made the decision when I knew we were going to lose the apartment, it's like, it's the apartment or the car. If we don't pay the car note and we pay the rent, we're going to lose the car. How do we get back and forth to work to be able to pay the rent? Then we're going to end up homeless on the streets. So I chose to pay the car rather than the rent and just let the rent go. And that's how we ended up in the car. So for me, it was the best decision that could have been made at that time, given the situation, but it still was very uncomfortable. I'd say they were like 4 and 5. They're 16 months apart, so about probably 4 and 5. When the car experience ended, it didn't necessarily end our homelessness. We still did not have a permanent address, so it has always been a thing of how to get them in school. So there was times when they were homeschooled. There was times when, like when we went to Miami, that community was actually pretty helpful when it comes to getting assistance. And we went to the YMCA, and they actually got my kids in school for free. I was able to get free childcare and everything so that I could work and could, maintain. And so we were able to get on our feet a little bit quicker in Miami because of the YMCA and the help that they provided. So it was always trying to figure it out every single day. Where do they go to school? How do I work if I've got them with me? We literally were grinding, me and my husband at that time, like we're working first, second, and third shift. So if I got a third shift at a hotel, I got a third shift at a hotel in order to be able to sneak the kids in so they can have a place to sleep besides the car and things like that. So I was always planning even my money making around them. And then, by day I'm doing auditions. I'm trying to line stuff up, trying to make something happen to still stay on what I know is my mission, but still working around the clock to make money. So it was always a matter of where do we sleep? Where do we park? How do the kids go to school? Where do they go? Not having a proof of address makes it very difficult to get even food assistance or any type of assistance. They want you to have an address and all of these things. So I learned that quickly, and I learned how to, you could say, work the system to where I know what they need, so I'm going to give them what they need. So I had a P.O. box that is just, I figured out how to get it on my license, and it's just been my address from there on out. And I'm like, I'll never not have an address again. And so I was always able to show that proof that I knew they were going to ask for, even though I didn't have a physical place. Yeah, so because I'd always moved, I was used to adjusting to different environments. So I don't remember ever living anywhere for more than 2 years at a time, maybe 1 or 2 years here and there, and then we'd be moving again. So I was used to making those adjustments. And I guess in a way, on the positive side, it could have prepared me a little bit more for adjusting to whatever my circumstances are. So if I have to move to Miami, never been to Miami before, but hey, the world is, uncharted territory, but I probably was less afraid to go after it because I was used to moving and used to having to change. And, most people, if they're raised in the same town all the time, you hardly ever get out of it half the time, but it's a little bit harder to go out to the unknown. And I think for me, that was maybe easier. So that would be the good thing that came out of it, because I was moved around so much and used to adjusting to whatever environment, whatever people. Now I feel a little more unstoppable when it comes to we're going to go where we need to go, wherever that is. I mean, honestly, I feel like all of the scars prepare me. Like, I can't think of a single thing that I've been through that I can't somehow say, that actually made me better because this came out of it. Like, I don't know. Like, I really can't think of a single one. Every single thing I've gone through, they say if you had a time machine, would you go back and change anything? Like, I immediately go to the places where scars were, but I wouldn't change any of them because I know how much good I got out of them. I know how it's made me who I am today. I was not this person 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, I was not. And so now I'm like, wow, if I hadn't have gone through that, I would not be who I am right now. So I'm grateful for them, and no, I wouldn't want to change any of it.
Tell us about the scar of rape and human trafficking.
And then you jump right into that right after I said that. So you trying to prove me wrong? No, I'm just playing. That is obviously one of the most difficult ones, I would say. But, and I'm going to try to tell you this story in a way that I'm a little bit vague with the stuff, because people involved in these stories are still alive and probably watching my every move. So I have to be careful on some of the things that I say, but at the same time, I won't stop telling my testimony. It is my testimony, and if you don't like it, then you write a book and tell your side of it. That's the way I look at it, but I'm also careful to protect other people involved. But when I was about 16 and 17, somewhere between there, I realized that I was uncomfortable with a neighborhood friend that kept coming around. And when I attempted to bring that uncomfortability to the attention of my mother, it was not believed.
Was he an older neighborhood friend?
Yes, he was an adult and I was a kid. And I was not comfortable with him, but I don't think I realized at the time, because I say I was a kid, I'm talking about 16, 17. Nowadays, everybody's grown at that age, but no, not me. I was still playing with Barbies. I was still a virgin. I did not even think about when I had to take sex ed in school. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm never going to do this. That was where my mind was at. I just was very naive and sheltered and still a child at heart. So at that time, when I didn't know why this person made me uncomfortable, but I knew just the way he looked at me, the comments that he made, different stuff, I was like, something is not right about him. I don't want to be around him. So, long story short, this person ended up being able to manipulate my entire family and his family as well, because this was a married person with children, which is, unfortunately, I have learned the hard way, that is usually the case with murderers and pedophiles and crazy people. They live right next door to you and they have lives that they, and this is their secret life. So he was one of those that was a neighbor that you wouldn't think this about, but he had a whole secret life. And so I got sucked into that world and ended up, it's so hard to tell this story vaguely, but I'm kind of skipping through it in my mental timeline right now. Basically, I ended up getting kidnapped and trafficked out by him.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and right under the noses of his family and everybody that, knew him. I would not say that they allowed it. I would say that people like this are extremely manipulative. And, it's one thing to manipulate somebody who's just ignorant, because I was a child. I was just ignorant to a lot of things. But then you're able to manipulate every single person around you like a chessboard, and they're all the chess pieces. And again, it's another one of those things that I actually learned a lot from him. It came in handy in my future because, we need other human beings to survive. And so to have the mental capacity to understand humans and all of them and the way that they are, and be able to operate amongst them and with them and partner with different types of people and all those things, I feel like a lot of that skill set came from him, because I watched how he made everybody believe everything that he was saying, and it's really hard to explain. It's one of those things that you're going to have to watch the movie that I make about it in the future, because it's definitely going to be a movie. But yeah, it was grooming. He was not just grooming me, but he was grooming everyone around me. Even when it came to, I ended up going to college. That's actually how I kind of got out of the situation, got away from that. But even in that, I was in college, and he was able to manipulate teachers and people on the campus and friends, and like all of the things that were happening is really hard to explain. But I knew that he was behind it because I just saw how that game worked. And so, yeah, it's just, you got to watch the movie. It's so much easier to show on the big screen than it is to tell these things, because it's hard to understand. But, how do you explain crazy? At the end of the day, he was a monster, and his mindset, and his ability to manipulate worked in his favor to do evil in the world. But it is also a good skill set for you to use, that you could do good in the world with that same skill set. So, yeah, and he chose to do evil with it, and that's just the way it was. Every week, every day, every month felt like 10 times longer than it was. So, but the only reason I know the timeline a little bit is because he was a smart criminal. He did not actually physically rape me until I turned 18. So that, because he knew the whole statutory rape thing. So at that point, even if I said he did this, it wouldn't make as big of a difference because now I'm an adult. So the manipulation and the planning of this lasted a year, that I was going through all of that before the physical part actually started. So yeah, it was at least a year and a half maybe.
So did he take you away from your home, or?
Yes. Yeah. I actually, at one point, was living in his home.
With his family?
Mm-hmm. And he had convinced his wife. I know, it's complicated. You just got to watch the movie. That's another reason I don't say too much of it, because nobody will ever be able to tell this story and write this movie but me. But yeah, he had everyone convinced of the reason that I was there was because I was being abused at home. So he's trying to help me and that kind of thing. So again, it was all manipulation, all a game. Yep, and it worked on everybody. Even at one point, I was trying to beat him at his own game. I kept a journal of every single thing that happened every day, everything he did. And I purposely hid the journal in a place that I know a woman cleaning her house would find this, but a man wouldn't. So she's going to find this, talking about his wife. And she found it. And I hear them arguing. I'm thinking, this is it. This is my escape. She's going to do something. She's going to help me now because she sees all of this proof. And somehow he talked her into believing that I was just being a writer, because that's what I do. I was just writing a movie. I was just making all this stuff up. So yeah, that he was able to talk his way out of that, even though I had it all there. And yeah, and he literally burned the book up in front of me. And I had to physically pay for writing that and trying to set it up the way that I did. I paid for that physically by getting the crap beat out of me by him and his friends. And I was told that I better never write anything again. This will teach you not to tell this. This will teach you not to write in your journal again. This will teach you not to write again. And so here I am, years later, not only writing in my journal, but also turning it into movies and plays and books and speaking out, just like I was told not to do. Like, things would be happening that threatened my mother and my sisters, and I would tell my mom, like, this is him doing this. He's the one doing this because he's telling me he's going to do it before it happens. So when things happen, I'm like, I know who's doing this, and I'm trying to tell you, but it was played to the point that nobody was going to believe anything that I said, because the pieces were already set in stone, where he'd make me look like a liar. He'd set me up for something to happen, and it made me look like a liar. And now nobody's going to believe anything I'm saying anymore. So yeah, it was all planned out.
So he had you in his house with his family, and he would have him and his friends?
Yep. And then sometimes we went to other houses. I can't remember. Some of those details are a little bit blacked out, but I do remember going like to other people's houses, and sometimes it would be a situation where he'd have somebody come in, like one person at a time, to send them in there with me. So I remember being in a room like with nothing but a mattress on the floor. It's just an empty, like, no furniture or anything except a mattress on the floor, and he'd like send them in there one at a time. He'd talk to them at the door, and then he'd send them in there. So it was...
So he was a pimp.
Basically. But like, I don't know what he was getting out of it. I'm assuming money, but I don't know for sure. I think for him it was a more control than anything. But yeah, because it was like this is my property, but I'm going to let you use it for a minute kind of situation. Yeah, it was like that. Yes, I remember you bringing back memories now that I kind of suppressed a little bit, I think. But like I remember he would say, like even when he beat me up, he would not touch my face. That was a rule. Like, I'm not going to harm your face. I'm going to punch you in your stomach. I'm going to do all these other things, but I'm not going to touch your face because that's, the important part here. So, yeah, so he was very careful not to hit me in my face. And then also he would make everybody else who did that to me, he would make them wear protection. And he'd say, like, I'm the only one who doesn't wear protection. Everybody else has to. I remember it exactly because this is the only part of my testimony that causes me to cry. I'm not going to lie, because I'm still in the middle of processing this one. But the thing that got me out of that situation was that I found out I was pregnant. So when I had lost the will to live or fight for myself, I realized I have somebody else to fight for now. So I did, and that's really what made me get out of the situation when I realized I was pregnant. And the crazy ironic thing about it is that one of the things he would say every time he was raping me was that he was trying to get me pregnant because his wife only had girls and he wanted a boy. It was one of those crazy things that I think he was saying it out of a power and control trip and didn't really mean it maybe, because when it did happen, then it was like, oh no, we gotta destroy this. We gotta do something about this. I can't have proof that I did this now, because that would be proof. And then it was a matter of now I'm protecting this unborn child from him, because he would purposely hit me in my stomach and try to make me have to lose the baby. So even though this is something that he was saying that he wanted for that long, that, when it happened in real life, then it was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We're gonna fix that. And so then I had to get out of it even faster because I wasn't going to let him kill my baby.
Wow.
So that's what made me get out. I think it's been probably some years since I actually cried in an interview. I usually make other people cry, and I'm like, but yeah, when it comes to my son, that's my I don't want to say that's my weak point, but that's what gets to me. And the thing is, when I say I'm still processing that, is because, so my son's 19 now, and I haven't been able to talk about this as freely or as detailed as I am in this interview before, because he didn't know the story behind his life. And so now, the whole time he's growing up, I'm saying, one day I'm gonna have to tell him this, I'm gonna have to tell him this, trying to find the right time all the time. He's 16 now, he's old enough to understand I can tell him this, and then always having an entire anxiety attack when I'm about to tell my son this whole situation and where he comes from. And it was because I'd worked so hard to protect my kids from trauma, because I've always experienced trauma. So I'm working really hard to protect my kids from trauma. And now when I tell him this is really going to be his first traumatic experience, as far as I know. And so I was not ready to put that on him. And so every time, from 16, now he's 17, now he's 18. I'm going to have to tell him now he's grown. Like, I got to tell him, because I refuse to let him find out from somebody else, or let him feel, and when that happens, then they feel betrayed. They feel like you've been lying to them their whole life and all this stuff, instead of it being a sit down conversation, like, even with a therapist and things like that. So I started lining things up, even when he was younger, to get us in family therapy and all this stuff, to teach them how to communicate and be understanding and all these things, to do whatever I could to make that conversation a little bit easier on both of us. And so, it took me years to get to the point where I just went ahead and did it. And I think it was because I knew he was about to go to college. He's going to be on social media. I've kept my kids off social media their whole lives. And now, he's going to be out there and he's going to see, like, I've been telling this testimony, but I've been leaving that part out of it because it's his story too. And so once I was able to have that conversation before he went off to college, First of all, the kid is like, ugh, he could not ask for a better kid because he handled it so well. He's so much like me, it's ridiculous. Like, he was probably more intrigued than anything. Like, I'm thinking he's going to be devastated. Like, I can put myself in his shoes and think, this is how I'd react if I found this out. And so he was more like, wow, like he's just watching a movie as I'm telling him all the details of all these things. And he's like, so what happened to, just inquisitive and just like almost excited about it. That's probably not the word I'm looking for, but for lack of a better word, he was excited like to hear this story, and it was just amazing to him. So I was like, this is going a lot better than I anticipated it would, and I've been dreading this for years now, and here we are having it, and it's not going the way that I was thinking it would. So, it's a beautiful experience, actually. I literally took the whole day and just one-on-one with him, sent all the other kids to where they were going to go and just spent that time. We went to the movies and went out to eat, and just the whole day was just about sharing this with him. And so being that I thought that was going to be yet another traumatic experience, it was still healing and just a whole beautiful thing. And so now that he knows that, now it's like, okay, now you understand how you're a part of this testimony. And so when we write this book, when we make this movie, you're going to have to help me tell it. You're going to have to share it from your perspective. And the same way that I tell my testimony from my perspective, it resonates with the people who have been where I've been. He has to tell his so that people that have been where he is can understand from his point of view. And that is so important, because you would be surprised how many people out here are a product of rape. Some of them know it, some of them don't.
Wow.
But I tell you, the moment I started telling that part of my testimony, I've had people with my show, 9 Lives, it talks about this in the show, and people have come up to me and whispered in my ear, my first child was a product of rape. And I'm just like, what? Like, you literally don't know how many people are going through the same thing you're going through until you start telling your story. And that's the part that amazes me and keeps me telling it, no matter what the potential consequences or risks involved. Like, I have to keep going because it's helping so many people. It's amazing.
You were brought in this world by a father that didn't want you. Mm-hmm. And your son has experienced the same thing. Mm-hmm. Has this man reached out to try to?
Oh, no, I wouldn't let him, because, the only reason he's not in jail for the rest of his life is because I didn't want to go through. Like, I did go to the police a couple times too, but he explained himself out of that, and they were able to, they just ended up interrogating me for days at a time. And so I don't want to sit in a police station going through this no more. So that's a lot of the reason why people who do experience rape and all this stuff, they're going to get dragged through the mud. That's just how it is. And that's why so many people keep it quiet. So for those of you who were wondering why so many people don't speak up, that's why. I had already come to the conclusion, I'm not going to go through trying to get him locked up, and then if I fail, then he's out here with me, and now he's just madder. So he should really be in jail for that. My son never felt fatherless, because my first husband, who was there from conception, and through his birth and everything, he's always been his father. So he's never experienced fatherlessness. And that's one of the reasons he was able to take the conversation so well. And he said that to me too. He was like, I've never been without a dad. Like, that's my dad. So, yeah.
Do you think you were okay with moving around, like part of you running from him? Like, just making sure he could never find you?
That's good.
You know what I mean?
I think at first, yeah. I think at first I did do that. But then, because the calls and his ability to find me persisted for a little while longer after I was gone. And then, I don't think I was able to fully walk in what I know is my purpose as far as being in the entertainment industry. I've been acting and doing movies and stuff since school, but I wasn't able to be as out there as I wanted to be, because I was still always timid and afraid of that part. So, yeah, I think at first it was, but not so much now. Honestly, I think at the point that I went from realizing I was pregnant, now I'm fighting for this child, I pretty much stopped living for myself a little bit. It was all about, what does this child need? So I literally chose the first man who I didn't get a chance to vet or date or do anything before I got married. I literally set up the rest of my life based on, what does my child need? And so I was with him. I won't say I was with him just for that reason. Like, obviously, I did fall in love. All those things happened. But I kind of rushed the marriage and the moving in and all of the different stuff. I just started creating the life that I wanted for my child at that point. Because I never, when I was younger, you think about what you want to be when you grow up. It was always acting and career, and that was always the focus. I was not one of those, I can't wait to get married and have kids and da-da-da. No, I'm going to do this for so long, and then I'm going to get married and have kids. And then, and even when I'm dating, we're going to be newlyweds for like 5 years before we even have kids. Had all that planned out. So when this happened, then the plan shifted, and I shifted my whole, what I wanted to be the outcome to make it make sense. And so, yeah, I was married quickly to the first person that came along who showed an interest, and, I made that work. And then not only that, but I actually purposely had another child right back to back, because I wanted him to have a brother and always feel wanted and always feel that we created this family and not this was something that was forced upon me. Like, I never wanted him to feel like he was a burden that stopped anything or slowed anything down or anything. Like, this is the family that we created. And so it felt different for him. Like, he didn't have maybe the trauma that some people in his situation would, because it hits different when you find it. It hits different when you find it out from somebody else, for one, and not from your parent. But it also hits different when when you were always wondering where you came from and always wondering where your father was and all that stuff. He never experienced that. He's always had a father. I went to, and again, I was adapting to my environment. I was learning to manipulate people to survive.
Okay.
And so my friends at that time, if I would go stay the night with a friend, actually that's where I met my first husband. Was I was staying the night with a friend. We were going to see her boyfriend who was in the hospital, and he worked at the hospital. So, I was always like, I only associated with people who could help me with whatever I need to get accomplished at that point in time, So I was,
So you were a chess player.
Yeah. I learned to be a chess player automatically, to survive, not to wreak havoc on people's lives, but, it was a survival mechanism, and I learned it from the best, apparently. And yeah, so that's where I met him was at the hospital. So I was able to move around from time to time, because the thing is, there was times like when his wife was not at work, for example, that I was able to be a little bit more freer, because I knew he was only going to do so much in front of her that proved what I wrote about, like he wasn't going to, I could say a little bit more. I could do a little without, all he could do is have a look on his face. He couldn't really say as much, because he wasn't going to show his true colors around certain people. So it's not like I was never, it's not like I was just held in captivity, like that kind of thing. That was most of the time, but there was times, because she worked, he stayed at home with the kids and all of those things. So so there was times when other people were around that I was able to, let me see what I can do to get up out of here, like putting in an application in college. Now that I've got an application in college, now I've got these teachers now that they are now instruments in my escaping, and now I've got this boyfriend that I'm talking to on the phone all the time who lived pretty far away for a small town. But I'm talking to him all the time, and I'm telling him what's going on all the time. So he's invested in the situation, because he's knowing what's happening anytime.
So you had a boyfriend you told?
Yeah, that was who ended up being my husband.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was telling him what was going on. So he knew what was happening, like, all the time. So when I'm at school and I'm nervous or, feeling like somebody's following me or whatever was happening, then I'd be on the phone with him. That was also a safety net for me and a comfort knowing I'm on the phone with him, How do you explain that now? So she said she was going to college. She got accepted, and now she's not all of a sudden. So what are you going to do? Because obviously as the wife, you're like, well, you're not just going to be living with us for the rest of your life. You got to do something. So yeah, it was all planned.
She didn't have no clue? Like, this young girl in my house?
I don't want to talk about her because she's probably watching right now. I'm
Wow.
not gonna lie. But I would just say she was manipulated. Like how I feel about her right now, because there was a time when I hated her, because how could you be this dumb? But now that I understand manipulation better, I feel like she was just as much a victim. Because yeah, I'm sure I know there was plenty of times where she knew and she wondered and she wasn't comfortable or whatever. But then he was able to explain away, and then it's like you just hope for the best. The same way I did when I was in abusive marriages. I hope that I hope that he's not cheating. I'm explaining all this cheating away. So when it comes out that yeah, he's been cheating this whole time, then I'm sitting here looking at myself like, I knew this, but I wanted to hope for the best. And so I can imagine that that's probably where she was.
Okay. Depression.
Depression. That's an easy one.
Yes.
Now we're getting to the easy stuff.
Yes.
We're over the hump. We got the hard stuff out the way early. Okay. So yeah, no, depression obviously stems from everything that I've discussed so far. I got very depressed, and I'll even tack suicidal up into that. So I remember as a child, I don't know how old, but I remember like feeling suicidal. I remember hating myself. I know that a lot of that came from just me being me and not knowing, where my background was and everything, and feeling like everyone else hated me. So I learned to hate me too. So that was the original that had me depressed and suicidal, which I didn't really understand then. But then even as an adult, getting into these relationships, obviously when you're dealing with trauma and healing, you're going to feel those things anyway. So, but then getting into relationships where it's like, dang, can nobody love me? Am I not capable of being loved? Like, what is, and you just carry that into every relationship, whether it's a friend or marriage or anything. And so, yeah, I was extremely depressed, suicidal. It wasn't until my second marriage that I realized I kind of already knew I was an empath, and I was learning to understand the empath side of it. But I realized that I pick up on other people's feelings and energies too. And sometimes I'm feeling stuff that's not even me. So even when I got to the point where I've healed from so much and I don't feel suicidal anymore, I don't feel depressed anymore because of the things that I've been through, now I'm feeling it in a different way. Like, why am I still feeling suicidal like this and not understanding what it was? And a lot of it sometimes is who you're attached to. And especially when you're attached to someone intimately, those spirits are heavy. And so it's amazing to me how much I overcame that when I got divorced and I was no longer intimate with someone who had those demons. I was able to not go back there. Now, I will say this about suicide and depression for the viewers that are listening that may be experiencing that or have experienced it before. It's not like once you've experienced it, it's not something that just goes away and you never feel that again. It's just something that you learn to react to differently. Like, I know that if I feel these feelings, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm just not going to. But how am I going to react to the emotions that I'm feeling right now? Because there are times when it's like, I don't want to kill myself, but I definitely don't want to be here right now. Like, on this earth, Lord, come take me home, like those moments. And so, it's a healing process, even in just that area, to learn to cope with what you're feeling and give yourself grace and understand I have a right to feel this way. I'm not just tripping. I'm not just overreacting for no reason. These are the things that have caused me to feel this way, and I'm entitled to my feelings. Now, how do I process them in a healthy way that's not going to hurt me or anyone else around me? So that's, so that's what, when it comes to the suicide and depression, it's been there all this time for obvious reasons. But now I choose not to act on those emotions. I choose to walk in my purpose so that I have the desire to live all the time. First of all, this is where I have no choice but to give God the credit for that, because I'm just about as mind blown as you. How you're feeling right now, I have those feelings. When I watch my own show, I'm like, I really lived that. It was so long ago, it almost feels like a distant dream. But then I know that it was real. I still got journals and stuff to prove it. So, but I'm amazed with it. And that's where I have to just be like, wow, God is so amazing, because how? Like, even when I'm going through the things, I think this is the thought that I was coming to. When I'm going through the circumstances, like driving to Florida because we're homeless, I am somehow able to look ahead and understand, even in that moment, this is like, who does this? That this is not going to last that long. Whatever this is right here, this is a period of time. And so no matter how horrible it is or what it looks like, they always pass. And at some point, I'm going to be like, I see the light at the end of the tunnel every time. And I don't know how, like, that can be explained by nothing but God. Like, how do I explain that? Like, I'm sitting here, like, I could literally be getting brutally beaten. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm knowing I'm writing a movie in my head already. Like, this is just another movie I'm about to make another billion off of, like, in my head, like, just hanging on to the good stuff. And that's what kept me, that's why I was writing in the journal. It wasn't necessarily just for her to find, although I set it up for her to find it, but it was because that was what's keeping my hope alive. Like, I'm going to make everything that I'm experiencing right now is about 12 movies already, like, just lined up, ready to go. So, and books and all of the things. And so now that I'm walking and living in what I saw this right here then, when I was a child that didn't feel capable of anything or even escaping, for that matter, and I saw my future. And so now I'm living in it and walking in it, but there's still even more of a bigger future ahead that I'm still able to, now when I experience something, it don't even hit me the same way. Like, for example, just got in a car accident a couple weeks ago. If the same thing had happened to me years ago, it would have been a whole different reaction. But now it's like, okay, gotta get my adrenaline calmed down. This just happened. I almost just died. Wheel came off on the highway, spun in front of a semi, went into a ditch. Now, okay, I handled the situation. Now I gotta figure out what to do next. And I'm just rationally going through the process of what do I need to do, not letting myself react emotionally, but still understanding at some point when this is all over, I'm gonna have to process this because this is mental drain on me right now, knowing that part of it, but then also knowing that on that same day, because it's happened on my birthday in the morning, I'm going to be at my birthday party tonight and I'm going to have a blast. That's all I kept thinking about the whole time as I'm going through this whole ordeal, where the morning started off at 4:30 a.m. where I almost died. Traumatic situation. Here we go again. Like, I haven't experienced trauma enough. Now I'm like a trauma expert at this point, because now I'm processing through it. What needs to be done? Okay, I got to call police. I got to get the car towed. I got to get transportation to get back to Atlanta because my birthday party's happening tonight. I got all these people flying in from everywhere. I'm not going to not be at my birthday party. So I'm going to be there one way or another, just starting to put the pins into place to make it happen. And I think on that day, the people around me who know these things about me really know now. Like, they learned that day that I am not playing when I say, like, I mean what I say. And unless I'm dead, nothing's going to stop me from doing what I say. So when I showed up at that birthday party, better late than never, everybody was shocked. Everybody thought I was going to cancel it. Everybody thought I wouldn't be, because it's normal. Like, normal would be me sitting here crying. I'm stuck in the middle of a city that I don't know where I'm at, and now my car is totaled, and what am I going to do, and why? Like, that does not get me anywhere. Like, what's that going to do? At this point, I'm in straight mission mode, and I'm keeping my eyes on the end of it. Yes, this is a frustrating situation. Yes, I did shed a few tears because it was a lot I went through that day. But I was always thinking about that party tonight is going to be lit. And it's going to be, and I'll add this, and this is, I hope y'all getting the message of what I'm putting down, because even as I'm thinking about the light at the end of the tunnel, which was the birthday party, I'm thinking that birthday party is going to be even better than it already was going to be because I went through this. I'm going to just let that soak in for a minute, because because I almost died this morning. Now I'm getting ready to go to my birthday and turn up like I've never turned up before. And on top of that, the people that I was able to bless along the way, the police dropped me off at a Waffle House talking about, you're going to have to get somebody to come and get you. I don't know, what you're going to do from here, but there you go. I'm at the Waffle House blessing all the people in there to the point that they gave me free food. All the Waffle House people follow me on social media now. Hey, y'all. And then these two ladies seeing the situation, they saw like I'm going through trying to get a car rental. They ain't got no car rentals nowhere. I'm going through all this, and they volunteered to give me a ride to the airport. That was like almost an hour ride away. These strangers like, we'll take you there. No, I'm going to order this Lyft because I don't want y'all to go out your way. No, it's fine, because they were all so inspired.
Wow.
So now, because I'm putting out this positive in the world at a time when I could easily be pissed off, depressed, angry, frustrated, God, why me? Like, that would be normal. But that's why I say it's something else in me that God has put there, and only I can give him credit for it, because that's not normal for me saying it out loud and looking back on it. But that's what happened, and that's what I feel like I was built for this, and everything that I've went through up to this point has trained me to be able to do that, whether it's in a car accident or some other crazy trauma, because life's going to keep life in as long as we live. But I'm always going to have the ability to say, okay, this is the situation. What needs to be done right now? And how can I get good out of this? How can I bless other people in the midst of this? Because everything happens for a reason. Everywhere that we are is where we're supposed to be for whatever reason God has planned. And I stopped trying to figure it out and just started trusting that, hey, if it's here, it's happening for a reason. If I'm saying it out of my mouth right now, it's coming out my mouth for a reason. It's for somebody else. And I don't always hear the testimonies and don't always know the why behind it, but I've heard the why so many times that I have faith enough to know, like, oh yeah, it's there, whether they tell me or not, like somebody's being blessed. And so even that birthday wreck situation was a perfect example of that. Because of what I went through this morning, it caused me to celebrate in a different kind of way. And I can say that about every trauma that I've ever been through. It is causing me to live my life in a different type of way. It's causing me to be fearless. It's causing me to be persistent and determined. And everything that I am right now that is good came from scars. This is the thing. When I called you yesterday and I was trying to figure out a way to put it into words of like, let me make sure it makes sense for me to be here right now. I had to factor in the reality of like, ooh, this is going to be a long drive. I got a show in Washington in a couple of days. And, just factoring in everything that comes along with the reality of that. But then after speaking with you, also going to God to say, okay, is that where I'm supposed to be at this time? Am I needed there? And I came to the conclusion that I was, and that's why I'm here right now. So I know that when I show up where God sends me, like he shows up. He goes before me and shows up in a powerful way that I can't even take it in and comprehend. Like I will watch my own interview back and be like, dang, I said that? Like, because I don't feel like it's me talking at all, like nothing but God. So sometimes that power is just so heavy that I just have to stop for a minute, like, whoa. And then we're 2 days away from a show right now. And it starts way ahead of time, but especially the week of the show starts happening all week long before we even get there. And it's making me like, I can only imagine what Saturday is about to be like. Whoo, because he's not showed up already. So that being said, that just kind of segues me into talking about 9 lives. So 9 lives, and when I do this, do you want me to talk directly to this camera here?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So 9 Lives is a one-woman show in which I talk about all of my traumatic experiences, and I sum it up into one show with all these different characters, 9 of them to be exact, that are all played by me, but they all break down and talk about the different traumatic experiences that I've gone through. So I'm traveling the world with this show right now. The next show is in Washington, D.C. We've got a show coming up in Boston, Houston, Texas. Wherever God calls me to take this show, I am going, and I'm going reluctantly. I'm going reluctantly because part of me does not necessarily want to do this, but it's because I was built for this, and I understand and I embrace what God has me doing right now, and it's changing so many lives. I have to do this. So when it comes to the 9 Lives show, it is based off of my book. I do have a book, I Am a Poetic Ensemble. This is the poetry version of what you heard on this show today. And this is the physical, come and see it, come and experience it for yourself, live performance. It's part movie, it's part play, it's a whole concert. It is just the best way to describe it is an experience. You've just got to be there, because one thing about it, God shows up and lives are changed in ways that I couldn't even write in a script. So that is 9 Lives. That is I Am. I encourage y'all to get a copy of the book and come check out the show on one of the tour stops.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scars. Miss Vitelle, thank you for coming out. Looking forward to coming to your show. I'm coming to DC to see the show this weekend.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing. We out.
Scars on the surface, but they deeper within. Every stitch is a chapter, every break is a win. From the pain we ascend, like the phoenix we rise. Scars podcast where the truth never lies.